Some say that a name is all one leaves behind when one goes, and yours is a name already claimed by significance. Horace, the timekeeper, a name reminiscent of an Egyptian deity, a figure whose life was not itself a consequence of time. If only the case had been the same for you, or at least for but a little while longer. Had it been but so.
I'm going to war. I'm going to war. I'm going to war, and I ne'er shall return. Come on, boys, step in time. Empty pockets, battle rhymes, leave everything all behind. The rest you gents sit on your fence, nibble your fingers, you're sorry, dear's your savior is your fears. Oh, Jesus died, no sin to hide. The devil lied, it hurt his pride in death. Where is your sting? 'Cause Jesus rose in victory. He asked me, will you marry me? And I'll come for you once again. So I'm going to war. I'm going to war. I'm going to war.
Grief and joy. Had it been but so, I would have known that these two entities welcomed themselves early into your young heart, the day your father looked into your 3-year-old eyes and told you that you had gained the love of a baby sister, but had lost the care of a mother.
June 9th, 1915. I remember when I first wrote that date in my diary. It was the day you and the other soldiers left for England on the Caledonia. Horace, I haven't had the chance to talk to you in a while. It's been too long. Father is doing his best to put on a brave face for us. It was hard for him, you know, having to let you and Harold go while he remained here, to be a father for Dorothy and me, and a reverend for the parish. It's even harder now. Harold wrote us recently. We all miss him terribly. He sent some money to me, and to the others as well, to be used for family expenses, of course. $20 a month seems so little for such a great risk, but before joining the Royal Air Force, you had been earning the same, and never once did I hear you complain of it.
Had it been but so, I would have looked into your deep brown eyes and wondered what they had seen, the terrible images which flashed upon the backs of your eyelids each time you lay down to sleep. And then I would have asked what beauty a poet like you could see in the terror of war. Loyalty, you'd respond, that kind of chosen bond that inspires courage through sacrifice. Or maybe love, that compelling force which made the giving of one's life for one's people and country seem a privilege rather than a travesty. Those elements of war which inspire the poetry that would later act as the eulogy for a nation and for an age.
1899. That was the year I was born. The year our mother died. Horace, I know you have told me countless times that it was not my fault, that if she hadn't been ill for so long before, she would have survived the birth. But the guilt is still there. And of course, Aunt Edith was never able to marry after she moved in with us to help Father. She has always been as much of a mother to us as she knew how to be. And then there was that short while that we lived with Mother's parents. They must have loved her so much.
Edgar, your second name, the one which seemed to proclaim the attributes given to the role of soldier you would choose to fill. Edgar, fortunate and powerful.
Over 5 years ago, long before you joined the war, you had scarlet fever, remember? I was so young at the time, but I remember being so terrified for you. I thought you were going to die. But you survived, and from that moment on I thought maybe you were invincible. But that was so many years ago.
Had it been but so, I would have been the one you held, the one whose shape could have replaced that of the gun whose very form became part of your worn anatomy. When your mind brought you back to the hellish nights spent in those trenches at the Somme, or to the days that creep by like years at Ypres, as you watched the carnage of war behind the shield of a gas mask, I would have been there to hold you. I would have been there to tell you that the poisonous clouds of war had passed, and that the mask which served to shield you from your own pain and grief could be removed. I would have been there, not to pretend that I could fathom the true extent of what you endured, but to let you know that I was willing to listen, to understand as much as you would let me.
September 26th, 1916. That was the day you were first injured. I remember when Father received the notice. He was terrified. But Dorothy and I, we were almost happy. Not because you were hurt, but because being in hospital meant that for a while, you would be safe, away from the fighting. And the list of the souls of the dearly departed for whom we prayed would not include your name. Not that day.
Had it been but so, I would have been there, to brush away the brown locks hanging down over your forehead, so as to run my fingertips across the puckered shrapnel scars hidden beneath. Although there would be no way to rid you of that past etched so definitely upon your skin, I would have learned to help those memories heal, to accept that my purpose was to help in the process of healing, not to prevent the scarring which would inevitably follow. Had it been but so, there might have been a day that I looked at the airplanes above us, and thought of all the far-off countries you had seen. I would have wondered at the languages you had heard spoken by expert tongues, if you had thought of training your own to do likewise. The question, of course, would have stopped at my lips, knowing full well that for you no foreign sounds could ever replace the inventory of colors the English language had provided to paint your landscapes of poetry, that no language would ever sound so sweet upon your lips, nor appear so noble upon the page, as that of the land you pledged your life to defend.
1917. That was the year you joined the Air Force. But it all started the day you signed up for the war. Why did you do it? You had spent 2 years as a private signaler before the war. Was that it? After your years at Adult Collegiate, you were so excited to further your education. At school you were Horace, the popular one, the student who wrote poetry, the student whom all the others loved, whom I loved. If you hadn't joined, you would be beside me right now, and I wouldn't have to be writing you this letter. Did you feel the obligation to join because of Father's rank as captain? Or because Harold had volunteered so early in the war effort? Or did you see it as your individual duty to fight as you did, to live up to our family name, to be considered worthy of the name Bray?
Bray, a name carried down through generations, preserved from father to son, a name to be earned by each family member who inherited it. The name which was scrawled on the documents marking your welcoming into this world and your untimely departure from it, and you having so fully earned your right to bear it. Bray, a name meaning many things, but the most notable among them being brave.
July 1918. I've never seen Father cry before. At least, not like he did when we got the notice. A uniformed man at the door, a few muttered words my heart fought not to hear, and then the man left before he could get swept up in the lives his message had torn apart. I cried until I couldn't any longer. They gave us medals a few years after, you know. Medals to commemorate your service, as if they truly cared for the young life that had been cut short for their cause. The Star, British War, and Victoria medals, they were all administered by the Air Ministry. Soon another one of my birthdays came and went. I became older than you will ever be. Oh, Horace, how I would do anything to be your younger sister again.
And since it was not so, there is no name for me to appendage to this letter, dear Horace. Since it was not so, I hold no identity in your story, no name, no purpose. Had it been but so, I would have been your wife, wedded to you by a reverend father, and bound to you by a love which would have proven to outlast the most terrible consequences of war. I would have brought children into the world you fought to preserve, and each time we sat together to listen to your crafted stanzas, newly unburdened by the images of war, they would have known the enduring love of a mother as well as a father, the likes of which you had been forced to live without. But it was not so, Horace. At the hour of your passing I offered prayers, but among the multitude for whom I prayed, your name could warrant for me no more than the generic tears I shed at the sound of each unfamiliar name, suddenly left without a possessor.
April 25th, 1899, the date of Mother's death. That had been the only other date on the headstone before the date of yours was added. They told us it was an accident. Of all things, Horace, it was an accident that killed you. Although they tried to hide the reality of war from us, I know you survived some of the most terrible conditions in battle. You, the poet in the trenches, the soldier in the cavalry, and then the second lieutenant in the sky. And yet it was a mid-air collision during training that took your life the day before you were to go to France to fight. Perhaps a worse fate would have awaited you there. Perhaps God brought you back to him before you did suffer more, and I should be thankful. Or perhaps if there had been no accident, you could have survived for another 6 months. You would have seen the end of the war, returned to us, fallen in love and married, written poetry that no longer had to speak of bloodshed.
Perhaps that is why Kathleen moved away with her husband, to escape the country that was willing to give away her brother's life. Perhaps that is why Harold could not bring himself to return to his position of bank clerk after he married, but chose to become a farmer in Hamilton, an employment which would bring him closer to the very earth which boasted the privilege of holding you close one last time, hundreds of miles away. I never met Kathleen, that little sister whose life had been traded for your mother's, or saw how bitterly your father wept when he heard the news of your passing. Without you as our common bond, I could never be there to wish Kathleen well on her wedding day, or help dry her tears when every uniformed guest reminded her of the one she most desired to see, the one who would not be able to make an appearance. I was not notified when your brother Harold returned from the terrible war he'd seen from start to finish, or witnessed the unbearable weight of guilt which hung between him and your father as your sister Dorothy and Aunt Edith tried to distract them from an empty seat at the table or place by the windowsill, from an absence which would continue to whisper the lingering ache of war.
September 2nd, 1918. It was 2 months after your death that I married Donald Ross. I wanted just a small ceremony with only our loved ones in attendance, but with Father being the reverend of the parish, I should have known that the whole community would come. I couldn't bear to refuse them. They all seemed to need something uplifting in their lives, and for that one day I should give it to them. All this news of death has left us tired, Horace. But that night, oh, you should have seen the dancing. Just when you begin to think that the last shred of joy in our lives is gone for good, you seem to catch it in glimpses. I wish you could have been there. You would have loved it. I imagined dancing with you. I cannot remember the last time we danced.
But as you know, while war must come to an end, love chooses to endure. I write now on love's behalf, as a reminder of what could have been, as but a ghost who dwells in a time you never lived long enough to know. I read your poems to those empty chairs where our children would have sat, and feel upon my cheek neither the caress of your hand nor the tears with which to grieve your absence. I write to apologize for the grief I can never feel over your passing, for this is the part of me that never came to exist, the part whose potential to be disappeared with you that 9th of July, 1918. But this part of me has pledged to stay here, in Woodland Cemetery, standing watch over that memorial stone which lays claim to your name but not your presence. I have lived my life. Somewhere too my body lies beneath the ground, never having known this part of me could have existed. So I will stay here, with all the other smiling whispers who share my obscure title of could have been. I will stay here, a silent presence, like the deer which wander peacefully through this maze of memories, and I will watch as passers-by pause at your name as they listen to the story of your sacrifice.
I care little for dates now, Horace. What is the point in documenting the passage of time when all it does is remind me that each day I live, I am leaving you farther behind in the past? But no matter. I have come to your memorial stone for a reason, Horace. I am leaving soon, with my husband. This may be one of the last times I can come to visit you here. I'm not sure when I will next be able to return to Canada. This is no longer my home. It's funny, Horace. Sometimes I almost feel as if you are here below me, even though my mind would tell me otherwise. Your body should be buried here, with our mothers, instead of overseas in a place where they did not know you. How many people there pass by your grave and ask themselves, "Where is his family?" To which can only come the reply, they are not here.
So I write now, Horace, to prove that in our humanity we will always leave behind much more than a name. You, Horace Edgar Bray, can attest to this. You have survived. As timekeeper, a man whose time was cut short but preserved in every life which was able to continue on account of his sacrifice. As the poet soldier, fortunate enough to see the beauty of loyalty and sacrifice, and powerful enough to overcome the bitterness of war in order to transform grief into dulcet rhyme, and as a son whose bravery sent him from the dirt of the trenches to the glory of the skies.
I felt hot tears rise to my eyes when I looked at that lad. Brave, gallant, shattered, smiling youth, he gave us all he had. For youth so fair, so sorely hurt, all England's heart is sad.
He passed me on a crowded street, we did not meet again. He showed me in a sudden flash our England's pride and pain. And when all is long forgot, his memory shall remain.
It started out as a feeling, which then grew into a hope, which then turned into a quiet thought, which then turned into a quiet word. And then that word grew louder and louder, till there was a battle cry. I'll come back when you call me. No need to say goodbye. Just because everything's changing doesn't mean it's never been this way before. All you can do is try to know who your friends are as you head off to the war. Pick a star on the dark horizon and follow the light. You'll come back when it's over. No need to say goodbye. You'll come back when it's over. No need to say goodbye. Now we're back to the beginning. It's just a feeling and no one knows yet. But just because they can't feel it too doesn't mean that you have to forget. Let your memories grow stronger and stronger till they're before your eyes. You'll come back when they call you. No need to say goodbye. You'll come back when they call you. No need to say goodbye.